Yep, it's live on YouTube now.
Right, thank you very much. And just for the benefit of YouTube, or benefit of the tape, okay, we had a paper that was discussed on basically policy SS9, okay, which was a report for a task and finish group that was created. There was a lot of confidential information within the papers, which is why we went into private session. Basically, what I can say as a general wrap up is that in the white paper, there were three proposed recommendations. One which was about the local plan update, and the basic policy SS9 should remain unchanged at local plan update. Okay, however, there is clarity sought and confirmation whether there is agreed legal definition of ancillary retail. There was a second recommendation, which basically was the role of cabinet, and that the task and finish group recommended that additional checks and balances need to be introduced to cabinet decisions on large-scale projects, and it was defined as a large-scale project as possibly with a value of £100 million or more, and that a root and branch review of the procurement process for large-scale projects is required, linked to oversight and scrutiny. And then finally, there was a third recommendation, which was oversight of large projects, okay, which the task and finish group felt that the evidence presented displays a significant planning risk with regards to conflict on the town centre trade, and potentially the commercial financial risk on the town centre as well. There is a need for a structured process of oversight before, during, and in retrospect on all future large projects, okay, and to support the cabinet through the decision-making process. Such would benefit openness, transparency, and good decision-making best practice. Further, it is suggested that the chief executive takes responsibility for all major projects reviewed annually in their appraisal. There was also a number, there were 9 confidential proposals, and it was agreed by the committee, okay, that the 3 proposals on the white paper and also the proposals in the pink paper would all be passed to cabinet for comment before coming back. Councillor Laura James, please be careful not to mention anything in the pinks, please. You're on mute, Councillor James. Still on mute, Councillor James. Councillor James, you're still on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Go. Yes,
sorry.
we can.
And we also agreed that the 9 further work required would also go forward to cabinet, as well as, so it's the 3 recommendations, the 9 further work required, as well as the 9 additional. So it was.
Thank you for the clarification. Okay. And it was also, sorry, Councillor James. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification. And also it's proposed that Councillor Isaac be invited to the EPH committee to give us an update on where we are with the leisure park in a confidential setting. I'll get an email off to that with Sadie over the next couple of days. So there we go. I think I kind of got everything, okay, in the main. Okay, and so if everybody agrees with that, okay, I will then move forward to the next item on the agenda, which is the building fire safety motion. Excuse me. Okay, and basically what I would like to do is to hold an extra meeting in September, okay, dates yet to be supplied, where we can get an update from the task and finish group to see exactly where they are, okay, in response to this motion. This motion was, sorry, as, okay, no, sorry, okay, with there. So basically this was for a motion that was passed by full council just before we went into PERDA, okay, and this committee remains with oversight on that. So basically that's what I want to have happen. So everyone's aware of that. If everyone's in agreement, okay, then happy days. If anyone's got any questions, Councillor McCormack.
Chair, if I may, the crucial aspect of that motion was for the cabinet member to write to the government asking for the clarity on availability of building safety funding schemes for Crown Heights. And I'm also aware that Victory Hill next door, the penthouses there have got cladding issues as well. Is it possible for us to ask if that has been done and what the response was?
I will ask.
Yeah, and also I think we need to keep the pressure going on our MPs with the fall of that Smith-McPartland amendment in the House. There was an article on the Breakfast News this morning about cladding. You know, we've got several hundred people affected in Basingstoke. Some of these properties that they're leaseholders on have got zero value, and they're expected to cough up tens of thousands of pounds. So that while there's a lot of agreement, you know, universal agreement, I dare say, that leaseholders shouldn't be footing the costs, there seems to be painfully little progress, even after this being raised as an issue nationwide over the past few months, let alone the preceding 4 years post Grenfell, and let alone the years before that, because this has been a problem that's been building up for a very long time.
Thank you, Councillor McCormack. What I'll do is I will contact the portfolio holder and get an answer for that. Councillor James. You're on mute, Councillor James. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Did you say that there's a task and finish group that's been set up for this?
No, there's a task force.
Right.
Okay,
okay.
that's been set up
okay.
to actually handle this. Okay, and I'll be getting an update from them.
So what it says in the motion, it says that that we receive progress reports and the task force update. So I suppose we need to ensure that that's what the motion says.
That's correct. What, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor James, have you another question? No. Okay, great. Okay, so basically that's where it is with that particular motion. I will email Councillor Robinson, because I think he still has the portfolio. Okay, and I will chase up on that and let the committee know by email. Okay, and then obviously we will be getting updates and progress reports from the task group, from the task force, I beg your pardon. Okay, so if we're all happy with that, okay, then what I'd like to do is to move on to item number 8, and I have had apologies just now from Councillor Rafael. Unfortunately, he can't be with us because he has prior commitments, okay, that he can't break. Okay, but basically I'm going to have a meeting with him, okay, next week, okay, and what I'll do is I will email the committee, okay, an update as to what he's proposing to do regarding the motion, okay, and where he's at. Okay, and I hope that meets the committee's approval. So then moving on to item.
Yeah, if I may.
Sure.
there's a multitude of things within that motion.
There
it
is,
also
yes.
mentions working with Vivid and sovereign housing associations as our main transfer stock owners. Would the committee be minded to invite representatives of the housing associations to tell us what they're doing on conversion of their stock? Because there are a lot of private owners of the same stock who might benefit from information and advice as to how to convert their stock to be more energy efficient.
Okay, what we'll do is we will get that on the work committee, and we will invite Vivid and Sovereign. Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any others to invite? Is it just Vivid and just Sovereign?
I think it's much broader than that. If you look at the motion, I mean, it
is very broad. Yeah, which is why I'm asking.
I think there's other partner agencies. I think, do we pick out the two major? We've also got London Quadrant, and we've got other key housing associations. I think, again, you could look at this as a piece of work for a task and finish group to look at this motion, to look at, how you would take this forward and what you'd need to do. Because I think this is, a bit like the other one, but I think this is a very significant piece of work that could be done. And it's saying here that the issue is referred to EPH committee for oversight, and that the relevant portfolio are tasked with drawing up an action plan.
That's right.
I don't think we can do this tonight. I think this is a big piece of work, and it's nice to have the Vivid to come along and Sovereign, but I think it's more than that. And I think, I think we need to explore it. And I think this is a big piece of work. And again, this is another piece of work that a task and finish group could do.
Chair, we've already got the climate emergency map, and that would be the ideal body to look at this piece of work.
That's correct. Okay. And
but we've already said
we just
tonight
have no, hold on, please, Laura James. Okay. So I'm happy for the map to actually do the main thrust of the work and report back to us. Okay. But again, that map has to meet. Okay. And I'm assuming that Councillor Raffel will have something in his plan, okay, to actually bring that forward, which I'm looking forward to exploring when I meet with him. Councillor James.
It's more than that, though, isn't it? Because the motion says an EPH committee, and what we've already said tonight, we have concerns about maps, and that they're a cabinet member-led piece of work. I think if you look at this, there's a lot of work that is required, and we could tease out some of this to then go back to the map, but also go back to the cabinet member. And I think it's an opportunity really to do a detailed piece of work.
Yeah, I agree. It's a big piece of work, but it comes to the committee. Okay, I don't want it to go to a task and finish group, because the task and finish group has as much transparency as a map. Okay, so bearing in mind the fact that the climate emergency map is set up, okay, they're the people that are best placed to dive into the detail, and then they give us an update, which is then in open session. Okay, so that's the way I'm proposing to move that. Councillor Mahaffey.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to sort of support both the previous comments about there's a lot of work needs to be done, and it either needs to be in a map or a task and finish group, wherever it is. But I do think, although, as Councillor McCormack said, we should at some point have the housing associations in as well. The key thing on this is retrofitting houses to make them climate neutral is enormously expensive, like a quantum more expensive than it is new build houses. So I think the first people we should be approaching in either the map or task and finish group is to get some sort of indication from an organisation that does this sort of thing of what is the cost, because there's no point talking to Vivid, because Vivid won't know. It would be far better if we found a provider to give us, or a series of providers to say, this is the route map that you need to go down if you want to do this, this is the cost of what it's going to be, and then we've actually got some ammunition we can take back to Vivid, we can take back to Sovereign and say, these are the costs. How realistic is this to be able to work with you? And as I say, I don't know where it needs to be done, but I think that should be the recommendation of this committee at this stage, to whatever group it is.
Thank you, Councillor Mahaffey. I'm minded to actually take it to the climate change map, okay, purely and simply because, okay, that's there, it's already set up, and they will then provide updates to us, and it's something we can ask the question, okay, how much is it going to cost, okay, roughly on average per house, depending on what needs to be done. But I think that's probably better, okay, done at the climate change map. Okay, Councillor Dillo, okay, you had your hand raised? Would you like to make your...
I'm pretty certain that Sovereign would probably know how much, let's say, a ground heat pump would cost. They have got them in a number of properties, so they would know.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor James.
Yeah, I think we have to be careful, you know, in the way that we talk about our partners. This, you know, there's an assumption they wouldn't know that. I mean, I also agree with Councillor Dillo, but yes, I'm sure that they have some mind of in relation to this, and possibly they've already doing some of this work. But if you go back to what the motion says, it's to work with Vivid and Sovereign to identify pilot estates, and or if it's an estate or an area, and it's looking at the opportunities to pilot an area to take forward. So we're not sort of, you know, I think we just have to be careful of ourselves in relation to how we work with our partners. But there's an opportunity here, and maybe they're already piloting this, you know, or they're minded to do this in going forward. So I think it's seeing what the motion is clear on what it's asking. Are we stepping away from the motion, or are we, you know, the motion is here before us tonight, and so it's saying what he wants us to do.
I agree, Simon.
I think my point in relation to that wasn't whether or not Vivid are the experts in this. And yes, and undoubtedly they'll know what the cost of a ground source heat pump or an air source heat pump is, but that's not the issue. A ground source heat pump will generate about 40% of the calorific value that a gas boiler will, for example, or an oil boiler. So it's not about just plug and play, pull one out and put another in. It's about looking at the changing the radiators. It's about looking at changing the insulation. It's about looking at changing the thermal properties of the building. That then has knock-on effects about the decor of the building. If you start pulling windows out and putting triple glazing in, if you start removing radiators, you have to repaint, redecorate. There's a massive amount of work that goes around this. It's not a question of just, you know, how much is a ground source heat pump, which is why I just think it would be useful to have some data on actually what it costs, actually what the implications are. And I wasn't designed to be in any way disrespectful to Vivid or Sovereign. I'm just, you know, they are specialists in being housing associations. They're not specialists in retrofitting buildings for carbon purposes.
Thank you, Councillor Mahaffey. Okay, right. Okay, so there's a lot of work there. Okay, I will go back to the portfolio holder. Okay, we'll get the climate change, map. Okay, scoping out a lot of this, because let's have them do the work. Okay, and then give us an update, and if necessary, we can invite Sovereign and Vivid to give us a presentation on how they would plan to do this. Okay, so that covers that motion. Okay, so I'd now like to move on to item number 9, which is review of the work programme. Okay, please excuse me for a moment. I'm just going to have to put on a light. Right. Okay. So there's a lot of local plan updates. Okay, that we've got for this this next year. Okay. So let's move on to the 1st of July. Okay, meeting. There's going to be a progress report on the local plan update, getting it ready for section 18 or regulation 18. Okay. And just letting us know exactly where we are. Okay, I'm also minded, okay, for members who were part of the committee for last year. Okay, we were given a presentation on the green infrastructure. Okay, it was supposed to be an update, but it wasn't really the report wasn't quite where we wanted. Okay, and in that particular meeting, okay, what we said we wanted was a presentation on the current green infrastructure plan and how far along the road we'd actually got with it. Okay, and what I would like us to do is to see whether we can bring that into the meeting of the 1st of July. Sadie, I know it will be a little bit of a tall order, okay, but do you have any information, or maybe it's better from Rebecca, for Paul Johnson? Is he able to do that or not in that particular time frame?
Sorry, Chair, are you able to hear me then?
Yes. Oh, sorry. No, you were muted. So
yeah, I'm sorry. It was my headphones that were muted. Yes, Chair, I have checked with the officers. He is able to bring it forward for the July meeting.
Great. Okay, fantastic. So we've got that in for July. Sorry, Councillor Laura Jones.
So
you're on mute. There we go.
What it was in relation to that, and it's in the minutes that we had before us tonight, is that the 35 actions of the green infrastructure plan. So we don't necessarily want an update on what we need to go through. Is each one of those actions and where we
need to know where we are, if and whether we've done it or not. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we need to have the action plan before us and nothing else, nothing other than the action plan. And we need then to go through that action plan and have an update as to what progress has been made and
or not, as the case may be.
In the action plan, it tells you, if you look at it, what date it should have been completed and when and who by, so it's very clear, and we need to know what has been done in relation to that.
Thank you, Councillor James. That's what I understood it to be. I beg your pardon if my language was a little loose.
That's fine.
Okay. Rebecca, okay, when we spoke the other day, okay, that was my understanding. Has that been communicated to Paul?
Yeah, it's been communicated to the head of service, Tom Payne.
Ah, great. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so that's July. Okay, we then have we have a load of work programs. Okay, work program requests. Okay, which were in the minutes of the March meeting. Okay, there were. Okay, I'm just trying to think. Please bear with me, committee. Okay, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, now if you look at the work program, you can see that September is already full with a local plan update. Okay, and we probably need to have an extra meeting on that because, as I understand it, it will be discussing land that's in the Sheila. Okay, for those that are new, okay, there has been a call put out by Jo Bromley and her team, okay, to look at or for landowners to actually put forward potential sites, okay, and that's called a SHIAR, and part of that meeting will be touching on the SHIAR, and I would strongly recommend that we probably have another meeting as well, okay, in September to actually continue finishing that particular thing off. So we've got potentially the 16th of September and the 23rd of September. I'm minded to go for the 16th. Okay, does anybody have any strong opposition to that? No? Councillor Mahavi, are you still consulting your diary?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was, and 16th of September looks fine.
Okay, so if we need a second meeting, okay, we can put in the 16th of September. Okay. Extra meeting. Okay. And that will cover that bad boy. Okay, so we have the local plan update, and then an extra date for a meeting in case we don't get everything finished. Okay. We then, if we just move over the page, okay, we look at the 4th of November, we have a local plan update yet again, okay, and we also have a transport strategy, which is an annual update, okay, from Mark Lambert, and we have both of those there. And then following that, okay, on the 6th of January, we have a local plan update yet again, the authority monitoring report, which is comes to us annually, okay, and then we also have the infrastructure funding statement, okay, again from Mark, and then also we have a COVID-19 motion review. So that's basically the year as we see it. So we're going to be extremely busy with the local plan. However, I am mindful that we did have the 7 extra pieces of work, and what I would like to do is looking in the minutes, okay, at those, okay, where we said that it would be confirmed that there will be a future local plan map covering issues of housing and water. Okay, there is, and sorry, Councillor James, please.
No, I was just wanting to talk about those 7 there.
Yeah, I was just coming on to them.
Yeah, and that's what I was wanting.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. Councillor McCormack.
Thank you, Chair. I'm presuming that the housing and local plan map would be the ideal vessel to put forward some proposed policy changes to the local plan in light of the council declaring a climate emergency. We had this issue crop up last night at Development Control, that at the moment the climate emergency can only be put on planning application decisions as an informative.
Yes.
So we can't compel developers to have
be carbon zero.
Really,
yes.
You know, so that's a really important piece of work, I think, that needs to be done. So I thought I'd best flag that now, and hopefully the map can take that on.
I'm sure that the map can take that on. I mean, it's my understanding that there is a program of maps that is being put into place regarding the policies. Okay, it's still in draft. Okay, it's still being worked upon, but it's certainly something that you know, we will be looking at coming for volunteers when that particular set of maps is ready to be populated. Okay, and you're exactly right, Councillor McCormick. It is the ideal opportunity to pull out all the words on those policies and sort of consider them in and give them the weighting that they need, in words of last night. Okay, so I'm very happy for that. Okay, so but I just want to have I know, Councillor James, I just want to go back to these 7 points, if that's all right with you. Okay, is your hand up for?
No, I'll talk to them when you're ready to talk to them.
Sure. Okay. So that was the first one that, there will be a future local plan map covering the issues of housing, water, and others and policies. Okay. The second viewpoint was that there was a request for report in relation to youth unemployment and mental health. Now, that's an extremely important piece of work. And to be honest with you, mental health doesn't come under the purview of EPH. It's mental health is more, okay, and under the purview of CEP. Okay. And so therefore, what I would like to do is, as we actually have the new chair of CEP, I would like to pass that request for report to her, okay, for her committee to deal with. Okay, what do you say, Councillor Vaux?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think that makes perfect sense, and I'm aware that we wanted to cover this topic actually anyway in CEP. So if EPH are happy to do that, we'll pick it up.
Councillor James.
What do you want me to comment on that? Or
well, yeah, you've got your hand raised. I was coming to you for.
I'm commenting on all 7. So do you want me to talk to the?
Well, shall we do it one at a time?
Okay. So in relation to the first one, which was the map, obviously we discussed tonight some of the policy aspects of the local plan that were part of the recommendation. So I'd ask that we make sure that on the future local plan maps that they are included, that those policy areas, that we look at those as well, and we ask that the map does that. So that's the first one. And I think in relation to the youth unemployment and the mental health, yes, I don't see it's part of ours. The only reason it would become part of, and what it was part of, is the economic recovery. That's where.
That's correct. The next one. Yes. Okay.
So that's why, but it's broader. It could be broader than this was related to the economic recovery of it.
Exactly. Exactly. So we needed to have it minuted, okay, in the meeting, which we did, okay. But I think with the work review that we're at, and the fact that mental health is really not in our purview, we should pass that to CEP, and with the committee's agreement, we will do that. Okay. There was a request for a report on the work of the Economic Recovery Board. Okay. Again, I'm quite happy to have that on our work programme. And also there was, sorry, Councillor James, do you have anything to say on that particular?
Just, I think that should be a regular item on the agenda that comes,
sure.
Comes back, and it's obviously we all had grave concerns and we will raise them, and I think maybe sure. It's a regular 6-monthly update on progress, really.
Okay, I'll be honest with you, Councillor James, I don't know how we're going to fit all this into the year, but we'll give it a good go. Okay, so yes. Okay, so I'm happy to have that. Then there was also a request for a report on the work of the local enterprise partnership, the LEP. Okay, and again,
that's the one that I wanted to really speak on, because I think it's why we raised that is there's significant money.
I agree,
and we need to know, and I don't think anyone at the time knew anything about it and what their targets were and where they were going, and we don't know what the financial year is. So it was essential that
sure.
we had some oversight of what was happening on the LEP. Who were represented.
And I'm in full agreement with that. So I'm happy to put that onto the work programme. Okay, there was a request for a progress report on the green infrastructure strategy. We've covered that. That's coming in the 1st of July meeting. Okay, and then it was agreed that the DSO would liaise with officers to include forthcoming EPH maps on the work programme. And again, that is happening. Do you want to speak to that one, Councillor James?
No, it'd just be really helpful to have some. I'm getting very lost on them all, really.
No, I agree.
So I'm struggling a bit personally. That's
okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Sadie.
No, just as an addition that we've agreed to include the EPH maps on here, but also it's something that I'm doing with the councillor briefings. I don't know whether you've seen that we've started a new thing that's coming out once a fortnight, and we're going to try and include all upcoming maps like across the whole council on there as well. So hopefully it will be a lot more transparent and everyone will have a lot more knowledge in relation to what's going on in that respect.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. Okay. I'd also just like to say I'm sorry to hear, Councillor James, that you say you were struggling a little bit. Is there anything we can do to help you on that? Maybe there's something that Dem Services can help you with.
No, just I'm struggling to keep hold of where where they are and all the different dates, but that's fine.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you, Stacey,
Okay.
for what you're doing.
All right. Okay. No problems. And the chair to report back to the committee. Okay, in relation to suggested review of the housing strategy and allocation, and yeah, we can put that on there and bring in Tris. Okay, and see what his plans are for housing strategy and allocation. Okay, and I think those were the 7 points. Now, going back to the work programme, I don't know where we're going to fit these in. Okay, I think it's going to have to be a series of extra meetings. Okay, I think at this particular moment, I'd like to capture all those bullet points with the exception of the CEP one. Okay, and just have them on the bottom, okay, of the page. And then what we do is we look at some dates, okay, to try and work them in. Does that meet committee's approval?
I think if there's, I think we need to look at the LEP and when they do their financial, what is their financial year?
Okay.
Because I don't know who's making the decisions on what the priorities are on
Right.
the LEP, but we need to know, is it, when do they decide on, who gets what? And we need to be minded of that and understand that process.
Sadie, if we can put in a point we need to find that out before we actually put a date on that one, because there's no point in just trying to have a meeting or with the LEP or a report from the LEP when we just before the year end, say, or just at the start of the new year. Okay, so if we put an action, great. Councillor Vaux.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to propose that the Chair works with officers to work out the best dates for these items to be included in the forward plan, and make a recommendation back to the committee, because a lot of them are about timing of things like the LEP, the economic,
Sure.
when the recovery board is meeting, that kind of thing. So I think we should trust you to work out the best way for us to take this forward.
Oh gosh, trust. Okay, I'm happy to do that if the committee is minded. Councillor James, you have your hand up. You have a comment on that?
It was additional work programme aspect I just wanted to raise.
Oh, okay, all right.
I'm happy
okay.
for you to take it away. Yes, those things, yeah.
Thank you. I think. All right, well, I will go away and come back with some dates. Okay. What I wanted to do in this meeting was just make sure that we capture those points, okay, and put them on the work programme, and then we can see where we can work them in, okay, with officers' help. Okay, so that's what I propose to do, and if everyone's happy, then I'll do it. Okay, on the basis of me doing that, okay. In reality, I think that's the end of that one. Okay, number 10, there were no press or public to be excluded.
I'm still wanting to raise about work programme. Yeah.
Sorry, okay, so I beg your pardon. What do you want to raise now, Councillor James?
I had raised it historically, but what I'd said is, I think it's even more relevant in relation to what we discussed tonight, but there are documents that are being produced, for example, the leisure recreational needs assessment. We've also got a retail and town centre study, and we've got a landscape character assessment, and all of these documents are there, but particularly the leisure needs recreation. I think that we need to be minded of some of those policies and have sight of them and presentations from officers on them, because they shape policy, and we need to know what they're saying really. And if we're developing policy in relation to economic housing planning, we need to look at those.
I understand that, Councillor James. I'm just looking at the work review programme, and I'm just wondering when we're going to be able to get all this in.
Can I ask you to talk to, and I've spoken about it, I think it's 3 meetings now, but if we could just talk to officers about those documents that sit underneath the local plan, and I've seen them and read them myself, and there's one coming forward. It hasn't been quite produced yet. It's just in the final stages, is the leisure and recreation. But I think, I've looked at the retail and town centre study, and there's lots of other, but I don't know if this committee is minded and has seen these documents, but I think it's important we have sight of them.
Okay, what was the third one, please?
There's the landscape character assessment and landscape sensitivity assessment. There's a lot of if we go back to a report, there was a whole list of them, wasn't it? And I raised it in relation to, and I can't remember the report. So what's the report, that the annual monitoring report it was in?
The AMR.
Yeah, there was a whole list of those reports that are being produced at the moment, and I raised it when that was presented, and I've raised it since. And I just think the significant documents, and if we're looking at policy, so if we're going to have maps,
I think it was suggested at the time, wasn't it, Chair, that these would be discussed via maps, but
yes.
I guess that is something that I can chase up and confirm if you'd like me to.
Yes, please. I think if we just we need to find out first of all, okay, on the list of documents, which ones are going to be discussed in maps and in which maps, okay, and then from there, okay, if there are any documents that are outstanding, I'm sure what we can do is get them circulated out for reading.
And I think that's a good way of doing it in a map. But then what we need to do is make sure that members that are going to be sitting on those maps have sight of them, because they're quite substantial documents, and so you don't want to go into it without seeing or having an opportunity to read them if you're going to look at new policy.
I agree, Councillor James. So what we'll do is we'll have a look and see what the maps cover, and we'll Sadie and myself will get together and we'll have a look at the list of documents, okay, and then we'll see which map is going to discuss which document, and have them issued. Does that help you?
It does, thank you.
Great. Okay, so that covers the work review. There were no exclusions for the press. Well, there were no press to start off with, but we excluded everybody with turning off the going to private session. Okay, and so therefore, unless anybody's got anything else to say, I'd like to say that the meeting has closed. Does anybody have anything else to say or to add? No. Okay, and I'd like to declare the meeting closed at 21:31.